Hello again, everybody. I'm Steve. I'm an alcoholic. This video is going to be my experience with step 8 of the 12 steps of recovery. Step 8 says, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The suggested reading is in pages 76 to 84 in the big book. And of course, step 8 in the 12 and 12. In the big book, steps 8 and 9 are combined into the same paragraphs, the same pages in the big book. It kind of joins them together. But we're going to look at them separately as they're two different steps. Now, step 8 can be divided into two pieces, which we'll break down separately and look at briefly here. Made a list of all persons we had harmed. If you watched the step 4 video, you may remember that at the end I said you can, as an option, hold on to your step 4 writings because it will come in handy in your step 8. So you can bust that out and look at all the people, places, and things that you're resentful at. And odds are, if you've got drama and you've got beef with these people, places, and things, well, then you've probably may have been dishonest with them or hurt them or harmed them in some way in the past, and so they would go on the list. It's important to be thorough on this list, and I also would suggest, as it was suggested to me, start with the big ones. You know, for example, for me, one of my big ones was my ex-wife. She was the biggest one of all. And, you know, I have friends, a lot of close friends that I hurt through my drinking, family members, things like that. I started with the big ones, and then I listed them kind of by significance, by severity at the top, and then the less severe ones are sort of towards the bottom. Again, like we described, or like I talked about in step 4, my suggestion is that you got to be thorough. You can't have any omissions, like we talked about in step 4, where you're saying to yourself, well, I don't ever want to think about that person again, or I don't ever want to talk to them. I'm never going to see them, so I'm not going to put them on the list, so never mind. I'm not even going to deal with that one because I don't even want to deal with that person. That's an omission, that's a reservation, and that's not being thorough. So if you're not ready to be thorough and put everything down on the list and everyone down on the list without reservations and without omissions, you might not be ready for step 8 and you go back to step 7. So when you're ready to be thorough, completely thorough, and get everything down, then you're ready to write your list. Now, one of the reasons that we don't make any qualifications about the list, you don't say to yourself, well, I'm never going to say, or that person's dead, or I'm never going to see that person, or I can never talk to that person again. We don't make those decisions. We just list everyone. And then what will happen is you'll go over it with your sponsor, and then in 9 it says, except when to do so would injure them or others, which we'll get to. Odds are people are going to get crossed off the list because for one reason or another, it's just not going to make sense to meet with them. And you can modify the list and you can rearrange it and make revisions to it with your sponsor. But when you write it, it's just completely thorough and complete. Any person you can think of. Put it on there, and then you'll end up going over it with your sponsor. Now, the second half of the step is became willing to make amends to them all. Again, we're back to the reservations of, you know, I can't ever take ownership of my behavior to that person, or that person wronged me, so I'm not going to talk to them, or whatever your reasons are that you're making up in your head for why you're not going to make an amends to a person. It's got to go. You can't have those reservations, and that's where this willingness comes in. You have to be willing to make amends to everybody on your list without any reservations. And that can be hard because, again, we're back to humility versus ego again. But it's a program of rigorous honesty, so you have to have that willingness. And if you don't have that willingness, one of the things you can do is you can pray for that willingness. But and I've had to do that. So it's a 2-part step. Make the list, become willing to make amends to everybody on the list. And the list is going to get revised when your sponsor when you and your sponsor get to step 9, which is next. But that's my experience with step 8.